All right, so today we are diving into Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
By Mark Twain.
Yeah, by Mark Twain.
One of the great American novels.
It is.
It's a sequel to The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
Okay.
And it centers on Huck Finn, who was Tom's friend.
So we're looking at pre-Civil War America here, right?
Yeah, so the Mississippi River Valley, pre-Civil War America.
Okay, and to give our listener a little background, can you set the stage for us? What was going on at that time?
Well, it's interesting because the book was actually published 20 years after the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of a reflection back on a bygone era.
I see.
And it was, very much a satire on racism and slavery. And
It's interesting how a book written so long ago can still be so relevant today.
yeah, definitely. So the story starts with Huck, and he's living with this widow Douglas, who's trying to civilize him.
Right, I remember that part.
But he's not really into it, He's this rebellious kid who's always getting into trouble.
Yeah, he's kind of a wild spirit, isn't he?
Oh.
Always yearning for freedom.
Exactly. So he ends up running away.
And that's where he meets Jim, right?
Yes, Jim, a runaway slave, and they decide to escape together down the Mississippi River on a raft.
So it's like a classic adventure story from there.
It is, but there's so much more to it than that. They encounter all these interesting characters along the way.
Like the Duke and the King. Those two were something else.
Oh, those con men, right. Always scheming and trying to pull a fast one.
I remember laughing out loud at some of their antics.
Twain was a master of satire.
He really was. But through all the humor and adventure, he's also making some pretty serious points about society.
Definitely. He's exploring themes of racism, freedom, morality.
All wrapped up in this captivating story.
Exactly. It's what makes it such a timeless piece of literature.
Well, let's talk about Huck for a second. He's not your typical hero.
No, not at all.
I mean, he's rebellious, he's resourceful, he's constantly questioning everything.
He's a product of his environment, trying to navigate this world filled with contradictions.
And his relationship with Jim is really at the heart of the story, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's through their interactions that Huck really starts to question everything he's been taught about race and slavery.
I was thinking about that the other day, how amazing it is that Twain was able to write such a complex and nuanced portrayal of an enslaved person back then.
It really is remarkable. Jim is portrayed as this wise and compassionate figure, more so than many of the white characters.
And that challenges the stereotypes of the time in a really powerful way.
For sure. And it forces Huck and the reader to confront their own prejudices.
It's like Twain is holding up a mirror to society saying, look, this is who we are we okay with it?
It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary.
It is. So we've got this amazing setting, these unforgettable characters, but what's the bigger picture here? What are some of the major themes that Twain is exploring that make this book so important?
Well, I think one of the most central themes is freedom versus civilization.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Huck is constantly struggling with this idea of what it means to be civilized.
He sees the hypocrisy, the corruption, the cruelty within society.
Exactly. And he chooses the freedom of the river instead.
He's running away from the confines of society, but he's also running towards a deeper understanding of himself.
It's a journey of self-discovery for sure.
And tied into that is the theme of individual conscience versus societal values.
Right.
Huck has to learn to trust his own moral compass, even when it conflicts with what he's been taught.
And that's a really powerful message, especially in the context of pre-Civil War America.
You have this young boy who's being told that slavery's okay, but he can't shake the feeling that it's wrong.
His heart tells him one thing, but society tells him another.
It's such a complex and nuanced exploration of morality.
And it's one of the things that makes Huckleberry Finn such an enduring work of literature.
So we've talked about freedom, morality, but let's not forget this is also a coming-of-age story.
Oh, absolutely.
Huck is forced to grow up fast on that raft.
He's exposed to all these harsh realities of the world.
He faces danger, he makes tough decisions.
And through it all, he emerges as a stronger, more compassionate person.
He starts to see the world differently, to understand the complexities of right and wrong.
It's a journey of growth and transformation.
And it's a journey that continues to resonate with readers today.
Absolutely. There's always something new to discover in Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
So we've covered a lot of ground here, but we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, there's so much more to explore.
And we'll be diving deeper into some of these themes and characters in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned.
But before we move on, there's one thing we can't ignore.
The elephant in the room.
Exactly. The controversy surrounding Huckleberry Finn.
Yeah, it's a book that's been banned in some places.
And for good reason, right? The language.
The language is definitely problematic.
I mean, I remember feeling uncomfortable reading some of those passages.
It's understandable.
How do we reconcile that with the book's literary merit?
Well, we have to consider the historical context.
Right, it was a different time.
But that doesn't excuse the harm those words can cause.
It's a tough one.
It is.
Yeah.
We have to be sensitive to the impact of that language.
It's almost like we have to hold two opposing ideas in our minds at the same time.
Appreciating the book's value while acknowledging its flaws.
Exactly. It's a balancing act.
It is. And it's a conversation that needs to continue.
So how do we keep that conversation going?
I think it starts with education.
Educating ourselves about the context.
And being open to different perspectives.
Having those difficult conversations.
And ultimately, it's about learning from the past.
So that we can do better in the present.
Exactly.
I know it's amazing how a book written so long ago can still spark so much discussion today.
It speaks to its enduring power.
It's a testament to Twain's genius.
He was a master storyteller.
And he wasn't afraid to tackle tough issues.
He challenged us to think critically about the world around us.
And he did it in a way that was both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Exactly. He made us laugh.
He made us cry.
And he made us think.
So how do we make sure that Huckleberry Finn continues to resonate with readers today?
I think it's important to approach it with an open mind.
Being aware of its complexities.
And being willing to engage in those difficult conversations.
Because there's so much to learn from this book.
There is. About ourselves, about society, about the human condition.
And it's a story that's still relevant today.
More than ever, I think.
It's a reminder that we have to keep fighting for what's right.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's uncomfortable.
Because the journey towards justice is never easy.
And that's a message that transcends time.
Absolutely.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned the journey.
Because Huck's journey has been reimagined in so many ways.
Through film, through theater.
Even through graphic novels.
It's amazing how this story continues to inspire new interpretations.
It shows how timeless it really is.
So let's talk about some of those adaptations.
Right, so one of the most notable is the musical Big River.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
It premiered on Broadway in 1985.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
It is, but it's still popular today.
I can see why. Music can really enhance a story's emotional impact.
Absolutely. And Big River does a great job of capturing the spirit of the book.
What about film adaptations?
Well, there have been several.
Any standouts?
One that comes to mind is the 1993 film starring Elijah Wood.
Oh, interesting.
It's a pretty faithful adaptation.
And it's always great to see a classic story brought to life on screen.
For sure. And it introduces the story to a whole new generation.
I think that's so important.
It is. It keeps the conversation going.
And it allows us to see the story through a different lens.
Exactly. Each adaptation brings something unique to the table.
And they all contribute to our understanding of Huckleberry Finn.
Absolutely.
So it seems like Adventures of Huckleberry Finn really is a story that transcends time.
It is.
Even though it was written over a century ago.
Yeah.
The themes, the characters, the message.
Still resonate today.
So what does all this mean for our listener?
Why should they care about Huckleberry Finn in 2024?
Right, what can we take away from this?
I think it's about confronting uncomfortable truths.
Okay.
About questioning the status quo.
Challenging authority.
Listening to your conscience.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it goes against everything you've been taught.
It's about recognizing the humanity in everyone.
Even those who are different from us.
It's about empathy.
Compassion.
Courage.
Standing up for what's right.
Even when it's difficult.
Those are values that are just as important today as they were back then.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into Adventures of Huckleberry Finn,
I want to leave you with this thought.
how would Huck Finn navigate the world we live in today?
With all its complexity,
Social media.
political divisions,
How would his conscience guide him?
what would he fight for?
It's a question worth pondering.
And maybe,
Yeah.
by revisiting Huck's journey
We can find inspiration to navigate our own challenges.
with a little more courage
A little more compassion.
and a lot more questioning.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive
We hope you've gained a deeper understanding of Adventures of Huckleberry Finn.
and its enduring relevance.
And we hope it sparked some new thoughts.
And questions for you to explore.
Until next time.
Keep those pages turning.
And keep those minds open.